The glacier near our home is shrinking. We helped set up this weather station a year ago, and the glacier shrank by a meter since. Our home is Grise Fiord, over 1,000 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle on Ellesmere Island. In Inuktitut, we call it Auschwitz, the place that rarely melts. But now it is. Our names are Terry, Noah, and Jason Qaapiq. And we've been chosen to participate on the International Polar Year Youth Expedition to Antarctica. It's just about as far from home as it's possible to go.
Oh, you guys will have a good trip. And you guys are leaving soon. At least take a picture of penguins for me.
I'll think about it.
We're going with Students on Ice, a group that take students on expeditions to the Arctic and Antarctic.
It's just phenomenal that they're able to take off on this educational venture, and I feel that this is going to be an amazing stepping stone in their lives as they leave high school and potentially move on to post-secondary education. They're phenomenal students in every respect.
We're very excited to go, but there are a few things that we'll have to adapt to.
What do you think about the idea of no MP3s or iPods? How do you think Jason's going to handle that?
I don't know.
How many do you think Jason can handle that?
I don't think we can.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
We have this opportunity because of Dr. Fritz Koerner, whose work on glaciers like ours provided some of the first evidence of global warming.
I had known Dr. Roy Koerner since I was 16, back in 1967. His work was very important because he was a glaciologist, and he would go to the mountain behind Grise Fiord.
He used to come to Grise Fiord, and the people from Grise Fiord would take him over to the ice cap. At first it was by dog team. It would take him a while to get there.
Fritz's love of the ice started in Antarctica.
I came down as what a glorious title of senior meteorologist, which meant I had to look after the 4 or 5 guys who were doing the weather observations, which were sent out every 3 hours.
When our community was forcibly relocated here by the government of Canada in 1953, it was to support the claim of sovereignty in the far north.
We're only 690 miles, 700 miles from the North Pole. When I look like that over there, I can see the pole.
It took our hunters several years to get to know the land and find where the best hunting ground was.
Because the seals, the reason I net along the shore is that the seals travel along the edge here, right, everywhere, where they can come in to breathe.
Those first years were hard, and there was a lot of suffering. The government has still not apologized. Now, with the changing weather making it more dangerous to hunt on the spring ice, we have to adapt again.
Wow, lots of daylight now.
Over 50 years later, our people are still the human symbols of Canadian Arctic sovereignty.
It's not too bad, maybe we can get up by the flow edge.
Jason and Terry are themselves junior Canadian Rangers. As Canadian Rangers, we are the eyes and the ears for the military. What do you like about being Rangers? We do sovereignty patrols, and we have a 300-kilometer radius to cover from Grise Fiord. And we can go anywhere at any time. Shooting, drill. How about the time when you have most fun?
Hunting.
It's always difficult to know how thick the ice is for traveling. As hunters and rangers, we have to know these. And really the only way of knowing it is by traveling.
After weeks of getting ready, now it's time to go. After Fritz's many years working in Grise Fiord and Antarctica, the elders gave him the Inuktitut name Imiqutailaq, or Arctic Tern, a little seabird that flies from pole to pole each year.
I was delivered, shall we say, because you sailed the whole way, no aircraft, all the way from England to the tip of the peninsula 50 years ago, and then you spend 2.5 years on the base.
We have 4 flights to catch just to reach Ottawa. Grise Fiord to Resolute Bay, Resolute Bay to Nunavut, all the way over Baffin Island to Inuit, then Inuit to Ottawa. After 3 days of traveling, we're met by a Nikki from Students on Ice. Now we just have to find our ride. From Ottawa, we still have a long way to go. First, Toronto.
Terry na ngayon nga, Grise Fiord dito, Students on Ice ni Malis nga Antarctica mga.
Then New York City. We flew over the Amazon to Santiago, across the Andes to Buenos Aires. Then to the tip of South America, Ushuaia, on the Beagle Channel.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain speaking. We're currently in our way to Ushuaia Airport.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jeff, and I'm from Chelsea, Quebec. I went to university, and after my 1.5 year, I decided to take a sabbatical, and I went to Europe to have fun under the guise of working. And I ran out of money after a little while, and what do you do when you run out of money? You call your mom. Somehow, before the money arrived, I thought, maybe I'll get a job on one of these yachts. The second boat I knocked on, they said, well, call the owner. So I called this guy in England, and we had this 10-minute conversation. He said, do you know how to work the ropes? I'm like, oh yeah, I know how to work the ropes. He said, good, because you got to move on tonight. You're the new captain. Cool, right on. And that was certainly one of those left and right turns that happen in your life paths. And somehow I got to be in this job of leading expeditions. And then one day, just kind of thought, imagine if we could take students at the beginning of your life and how that might change your perspectives and define your futures. And really, it was that really basic idea. And like any crazy idea, if you talk about it enough, you'll find other crazy people willing to support it.
Fritz was one of the first to believe in the students' a nice idea.
About 25 years ago, Saudi Arabia funded a big conference, and this was to examine if it was feasible to pull icebergs from the Antarctic up to Saudi Arabia for fresh water.
Jeff's crazy idea was a chance for Fritz to share his passion and knowledge of the polar regions.
Okay, if you want to be an ice driller, just turn it.
Helping to build the education team and traveling on 10 students on ice expeditions.
Fritz passed away in the spring. He was 77, and he was a glaciologist. In fact, his bulk of his data has formed a baseline for what we know about climate change. 40 years of research on glaciers. Arguably the first person, one of the first people to the North Pole.
Fritz was one of the scientists whose work with the ice cores laid the foundation for what we now know about global warming. Fritz and his friend and mentor, Fred Roots, were both part of the last International Polar Year in 1957.
He originally was a geologist, a hard rock man, but also a geographer, and he got interested in glaciers. His training was such that he was interested in ice as a material. He used to always think ice was just a rock which melted easily.
He's just an amazing guy. Every other word out of his mouth was bullshit. The actual word.
Shit. It's 50 years, it was 50 years, almost to the week, that I first came down here. And it's kind of overwhelming in a way. 50 years, almost to a week. I don't know why I didn't work it out before. Anyway, there it is.
We all loved him to death. And it's hard not to talk about Fritz without getting emotional still. And the reason why really Jason and Terry are here from Grise Fiord is because Fritz has literally passed the torch to these two guys. Jason and Terry both knew Fritz, and 3 days before he died, we found out we got the project approved and that Terry and Jason could come. And I said, come on, Fritz, you're gonna be coming with us. And he said, the only way I'm leaving this hospital is as a wisp of smoke. It's 10 to 6 on February the 16th, 2009, and we are about to set sail and begin our journey to Antarctica.
This fourth polar year, the current one, is the first one which really looked not only at the hard natural sciences, but looked at people.
We're moving.
Having had the one 50 years before do something quite serious and concrete about continental drift, one hopes, and I think it genuinely will happen, is that this International Polar Year of 2007 and so on will have an effect on people in terms of climate change and sustainability.
Make sure you put this in the film, okay? Yeah. Show business, baby. It's my life. Good morning, students on ice, and welcome to the Drake Passage. As advertised, the Drake has been giving us a good ride since we left the Beagle Channel last night.
Weird, I can't find my medicine right now. There's a lot of movement in this ship right now, and I can't find my medicine, which I took yesterday.
I hope everybody's doing okay and got some sleep last night. Please take care as you get out of bed and start to move around. One hand for the ship.
Listen, laugh at me.
I really feel deeply for her. It's all part of the experience, you know?
Oh, great, great. This is perfect, guys.
His fingers
How are you?
across
Get a
my
patch,
butt.
get a patch.
Patch works. Excuse me, I have to
Yeah.
go to the bathroom.
It's time to start learning more about the environment around Antarctica and get to know the members of the education team.
Primary production in the oceans is usually by diatoms and coccoliths.
Everywhere around Antarctica, there's a fresh layer at the surface. We call it the halo climb, halo for salt.
Workshops, research, and journal writing helps to keep our minds off the rough seas, at least some of the time.
Antarctica is an isolated continent, which means that all the waters around it have no interruption when they free flow around the continent in a clockwise direction. And they get forced through a tiny gateway that's only 1,000 kilometers wide, and that's the Drake Passage. And that's why it's so rough.
Three times. I got to the bed like, oh. I'm definitely not a sailor.
And we're hoping that the conditions will improve today. That's what the forecast is showing, so that's good. But we've got some albatross flying around the vessel.
We're now traveling half the way on the Drake Passage, and despite the conditions, we've been able to see a number of interesting birds.
Santiago met Jeff 10 years ago on a bus in Patagonia. When they discovered they both loved fly fishing. Now he's on board to teach us about birds. It's amazing where life can take you.
We've been able to see the largest of the flying birds, the wandering albatross and the royal albatross. Seen also a number of black-browed albatross and an incredible amount of different petrels. So all these birds are adapted to a life in the ocean. This is home, aside from how difficult it may look to us. This is where they spend most of their lives. And the only reason for them to go ashore is to breed. The reason why they live here is because they rely on the wind to cover huge distances to be able to find their food, sometimes thousands of kilometers, where they can feed themselves and bring food back to their nest.
The seas begin to calm and another bird starts following the ship. Our first penguin.
Oh, there's one. Yeah, that's big.
After 2 days on the Drake Passage, we finally see land. Antarctica.
There he is, right beside the iceberg. Nice, we got our first leopard seal. See him? These are the ones that eat penguins.
We've entered a world of ice, but it's different than back home. There's a lot more ice. 90% of all the glacier ice on Earth is here in Antarctica. We're entering Nico Harbor to study its massive glacier. Even though they weigh millions of tons, these glaciers are constantly moving.
Zodiac's got a surge coming, so get ready and keep your nose into it.
When a glacier calves into the ocean, it can create a huge surge of water.
I timed them one day, and when they break off there to the beach, it's around about a minute on an average size fall. So you've got plenty of time to move. You still don't want to be on the beach.
Glaciers flow under the pressure of their enormous weight. As it starts to warm up, the glaciers move and melt faster. We're looking at this connection between the climate and the glaciers and the oceans with all life on Earth. What happens here affects all of us. Small organisms called plankton are at the bottom of the Antarctica food chain.
So we'll lower down the net and see what kind of plankton we can find in the waters here at Nico Harbor.
The water's so blue.
It is so blue. So do you think we'll find a lot of phytoplankton here?
I don't think so.
Probably not. What makes a phytoplankton a phytoplankton? A microscopic plant. That's basically right. Technically, we don't say they're plants, but one of these times we're going to catch a penguin.
I can see water.
Oh, look at that. They're like little rocket ships.
You just regurgitate all that krill. The chick teases it out. Here it comes again. Yum.
So we used to bring Fritz here, and he'd go up on that glacier and dig holes in the ice. And he loved to be on top of the glacier. Ooh. Did you think he was crazy? Maybe a little. What did he do when he would come to your school?
Just talk about what he does and what we're going to do in the glacier, how much the ice is melting.
Your glacier. It's going back.
By global warming?
By global warming. What do you guys think about global warming?
Bad.
Bad? You want to play King of the Rock? Okay, let's go to the glacier. Here, I'll help you. I got... Oh. You bugger.
So we want a pin, just like that, 1 meter by 1 meter in size. So just mark it out.
Dave shows us how to take the ice course, which can tell us what is happening to our glacier.
It just takes a little bit to get it started. And then
Like the rings in a tree, an ice core contains the history of our glacier.
we're seeing a lot of debris in the ice, and that would come from, can anybody tell me how we get debris here?
Dave Burgess is the scientist taking over from me. And he's, you know, I hope he's learning from me, and I think he is, how to travel around the ice cap and do the old-fashioned measurements, which can be used to calibrate the new satellite stuff, which he's an expert at.
Fritz was one of the first to realize that the glaciers were like a great library. Each layer of snow had a story to tell, one on top of the other. And if you dug down through the glaciers, you could read the story backwards.
You dig a pit like this, and me being a lazy sod, I usually take a tube about this way round, press it down to where I want it to go, take it out, put it in a bag and weigh it. If I was in the Canadian Arctic, that would be last summer. In other words, I'm digging away snow, which is not melted, dry, and then I come to this layer where it's obviously been wet and refrozen. And that tells me that's how much snow came from the end of the previous melt season.
He became quite well known because he could identify when volcanoes anywhere in the world sent up ashes, they would collect them on Fritz's glaciers. Everybody knew Fritz had glaciers that told the history of the whole world.
Fritz valued outreach a lot, particularly through educating the Inuit youth in terms of what his work can tell people about the effects of climate change in the polar regions. And he really valued sharing that experience and knowledge. This is a pretty significant form of ablation that we're seeing right over here. The ice is flowing down this steep slope, and it's crevassing, breaking off right into the ocean. They're very interested in what we're doing, and it's good to see them soaking it all in and having a good time as well.
I'll take that.
You want to take this?
You guys like charts?
GPS.
I love it. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Fritz has a rock named after him. It's Nunavut.
Nunavut, like Garden Island.
Is that what it means?
Yeah. In our way.
Like Fritz's rock would be an island of rock in ice. There it is right there. Koerner Rock. Because right here, that's where Fritz first came to Antarctica, and he spent the 2 winters living here.
One of the special things about going back to a base that you spent 2.5 years at 50 years before is it seems to trigger a lot of memories that you know they're up there, but they're not accessible. But when you see the base hut, lots of little things come back. And when you can get in the hut, it is somewhat different. But the pictures taken from the hut of the ice, just looking at the ice, there were substantial changes. It struck me looking at it that there were very, very big differences in the amount of ice that was there. It was so different, I kind of thought, are my memories failing me? And of course, when I get to it, download these pictures, compare them to the old 35mm slides, I'll know exactly how much ice has gone. That is as of much interest, because I do glaciology, that's as of much interest to me as the kind of nostalgia, as it were.
When it starts to melt, things can change quickly. The 12,000-year-old Larsen ice shelf collapsed in just over 5 weeks.
It's pretty cynical, mind you. You know, why do I care? I'll be dead when it gets really bad. But there are the people who are going to have to look after it in the future. There's no doubt about it. And I think they're capable of doing it. This is what's encouraging, given the right information.
Some of these icebergs are like those back home.
You really see the layering in this one. The blue stripes, yearly layers of that iceberg building up.
The top part is different than the bottom.
Yeah, that's about 150 feet above the surface. So times that by 8, you're over 1,000 feet deep.
But we don't usually see those huge flat ones.
Well, we're here in the north part of the Weddell Sea, and we're seeing a fairly large concentration of icebergs. And they're all different shapes and sizes, so they seem to have come from many different sources. We're getting a lot of big tabular icebergs that seem to be coming off the ice shelves much further to the south of us, and they're just circulating around in the Weddell Sea gyre. We're also getting some very angular bergs that may have broken off these large tabular bergs, or they may be from outlet glaciers. We're also getting some really deep blue colored icebergs from, they would originate from very deep within a glacier, so maybe a kilometer down, where all the air has been compressed out of the ice, and all we're seeing is clear blue ice.
Look at that big bubble coming up.
Whoa!
That is really spectacular. The air that's coming up from there could be much, much older than when we started putting greenhouse gases and everything in the air, right? Good clean air from there.
There's something we want to do for Fritz.
Tonight, we'll come down here this is where we're gonna go. These are called the Walwerman Islands, and see, it says unsurveyed. Almost nobody goes here. Over the last number of years with Fritz, we'd sail past here, and Fritz would always be out on deck, and he'd be looking and saying, I really think we should go there one day. Because they're little islands, but they have these, what do you call them, Dave?
Little pillow ice caps. Just little small ice caps that form on the islands.
Last year, when Fritz was with us, Scobie and Fritz and I went in a Zodiac, and we went all through here looking for a place where we could get on shore. But it was impossible. And we almost gave up, and we're coming around here, and then right here we found a place. And we got onto the island, and we hiked up, and then Fritz saw this, and he got pretty excited and said, this is where we've got to go back. What do you guys think? Should we go? Yeah. I just had a funny thought. If Fritz is watching us right now, he's probably laughing and saying, just shut up and just go.
Yeah.
On our way to the Walwerman Islands, we encountered a group of humpback whales. Whales were almost hunted to extinction in Antarctica, but are protected today.
We still have our 2 humpback whales on starboard side. What a great view, mother and a calf.
After spending time with the whales, we decided to stop at Port Lockroy, a natural harbor that was once used by whalers and later became a British research base.
He thinks I'm his mommy. I actually think he's going for my wallet.
Today, it is home for gentoo penguins and a museum with its very own post office.
Figured buy one that you can't get on the ship.
Need a pen?
Yeah.
Who are you sending it to? Your dad? Probably the fourth.
Put it here?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, I think you might
Now, our postcards too will follow the path of the Arctic Tern. Fritz first went to Devon Island near Grise Fiord in 1961. Over the years, he got to know almost everybody from the hunters and elders to children at the school.
I really became interested in his work because having grown up in Grise Fiord and watched the glaciers melt over the years, along comes Dr. Koerner, and he's talking about and studying things that I know.
He used to come here, he would be so open to the children, and he would do some class visiting.
And then he would take the kids up, and the kids would have a great time and tell about their trip up because he planted some instruments up there and he could check them manually. And I would, or you call it, pick brain with him, pick his brain and ask him all kinds of questions.
He's nice to everybody. Everybody liked him here in Grise Fiord.
It's nice talking to the students because they're pretty sharp, and it's not like talking to an audience of government people. These people listen, you know, and you know that, and you know that these are the people who are going to have to handle some of the things in the future. So you feel that you can have an influence that you might not otherwise have.
Fritz didn't get the chance to study these islands, so it's up to us to carry on where he left off.
That's the island straight ahead.
Each island has its own ice cap, its own climate record. This is a big reason why we all came here from around the world.
Santiago, can you go over close to that ice wall there, to your right? Are these Arctic or Antarctic terns?
Arctic.
That's an Arctic? Maybe it's Fritz. Flying around. Yeah, he's watching us.
There's a bunch of them around here.
Yeah, there's a lot, eh? The Arctic terns nest in the Arctic, and they're only here to feed. They'd leave pretty soon, because it's about a 4-month journey. They spend 8 months of the year flying, pole to pole.
The Arctic is home to polar bears. The Antarctica has penguins. These little birds are the friends that link them both.
How did you say Fritz's name in Inuktitut?
Imiqutailaq.
I think this is it, eh, Scope? We're gonna find a little channel that will take us into this little hidden cove, and that's gonna be our landing spot. It's okay? Welcome to the yet-to-be-named island. It's so great to be back here. It was almost a year ago today that Fritz stood right on that rock you guys are on, and here we are. So it's pretty awesome. It's too bad Fritz isn't here with us. I think he might be one of these Arctic terns, actually. You guys ready? Yeah. Do some glaciology? Terry or Jason, can you carry Fritzy with you? Thanks, buddy. Okay.
We have a lot of work to do. We want to take some ice cores to see if the glacier is growing or shrinking. Take snow samples and set up a station to track the changes over the coming year. Fritz was no stranger to hard work. In his long career, he only missed 2 seasons at the poles.
He was quite a guy. A lot of fun.
Yeah.
He didn't take things too seriously. Is that the spot?
Okay, so we want to get going pretty quick to get our GPS pole up.
It's a bit different than the glacier in Grise Fiord.
Smoother. Right now it's really bumpy.
Over 50 years, Fritz never stopped studying his glaciers. collecting so much data that no one could argue with.
A lot of modern science is from remote sensing, satellite work, kind of GPS type stuff. And what you can do is to get these scientists who are just as equally expert at what they're doing as what we did, is to make them keep their feet on the ground. Don't just look at the computer screen. You should go to those areas and do some groundwork on them. Put your foot on the ground.
We've got a temperature gauge that we'll mount on top of that. And hopefully we can come back next year, or somebody can come back and get the year's temperature record.
I think Fritz would be pretty proud of you guys to be here today.
It's really phenomenal to be standing in a place that, you know, that he noticed and that seemed so important to him. And we're really trying to continue something that he would have done if he was on this trip with us this year. He would have been right up here, you know, drilling out that hole and putting in the GPS and getting some cores and really trying to figure out what's going on with these little mini ice caps. Each one of the little ones over here has these lenticular clouds on top of it, which is, you know, this sort of interaction between glacier and climate that is a lot of what we're looking at here as well.
So that's what I feel our place is to hand over, but don't forget the past, as it were. Because one of the criticisms of young people is if you can't get publications on the internet, then they don't exist. And you have to tell them that they do exist. And just get away from the computer and go to a library.
Now, for Fritz, we have to do one thing. And that is on 3, as loud as you possibly can. Glacier. You're gonna yell, bullshit. You ready?
Yay!
1, 2, 3.
Bullshit!
Good job.
Yay!
Fritz wanted our Antarctic experience to really mean something.
This idea that one person can't make a difference is nonsense. It spreads like a disease almost, you know. They make a lot of difference.
Now it's our turn. Now it's all of our turns. So what can we do? We can do a lot. We can tell the world what we've seen.
Hello? Lucky.
And what it means to us. And share what we know from living in the Arctic.
Taking these students both to the Arctic and to the Antarctic, they then become messengers. You know, they go back to their parents, they go back to their schools.
What was the most scariest part of your trip? Yeah.
It's a great thing that he came to the north.
Was your trip fun?
Such an adrenaline rush.
What was your favorite penguin?
They don't just go back and shut up. They organize things, they give talks and so on. They engage in conversations with their colleagues.
Did you touch penguin right?
Just one.
What did you feel like? Did you guys meet any girls?
Thank you again for helping with the passport.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Grise Fiord will be a famous community.
So what you hope is that this International Polar Year, and we're told, and I think it's right, is that climate change and sustainability again is going to have its most profound consequences and strongest signals in the polar regions. So let's hope that it's going to really kickstart people into doing something genuine and real about climate change and sustainability.
And I think this is just a start.
What he started, and many other glaciologists like him, you know, is important, and it should continue.
And we thank him for that. We thank him big time.
We'll miss him.
The path of the Arctic Tern shows how everything on the planet is connected. Fritz wanted us to know what happens at the poles affects all of us, no matter where we live. Our names are Terry, Noah and Jason Qaapiq, and our glacier is melting. And if someone tells us it's too late, or there's nothing we can all do to protect the poles and the planet, well, we know what Fritz would say.